Okay, let's start.
So today I want to talk about the brown paper bag test, and I want to point out that this is going to be an unpopular opinion. It's going to be a bit of a different perspective, but as a lighter skinned person, when I look at these articles and essays written on the brown paper bag test, and I hear people talk about it, I think of whether or not it's a dog whistle to really vilify light-skinned Black American people. So I want to look at the Wikipedia article really quickly, and you can take a moment to read it. But I just want to point out certain items within the article. And I want to say that as a lighter skinned person, being within the African American community, I do think that there are a lot of different groups. It's not just one group. And in my opinion, people who look alike or are from similar countries or locations, for example, people from the Carolinas versus people from California, they're a little bit different and they're just going to group up because they feel like there's similarities. So I feel like with lighter skinned people, to me, the paper bag test was really just a way for them to delineate, okay, who's a part of our group and who isn't. Okay, similar to having a scale, at your front door and saying, hey, we're going to have like big girls and big boys club. Only people who are 300 pounds and over can come in, okay? Nobody else can come in, right? I feel like nobody would have a problem with that, but for some reason, if you're talking about light-skinned people, oh my goodness, it's such a problem. Like, people do not want light-skinned people to think for themselves or act for themselves. For some reason, I feel like they always want to make you feel guilty, as if you being light-skinned is this big problem for them and that you need to like help out the Black community. So I want people to
Because there's several reasons for that, honestly. One, because light-skinned Black people. One thing I actually want to say is, when it comes to the paper bag test, I don't feel like it excluded anyone but dark-skinned people. It doesn't really exclude brown-skinned people, and it doesn't exclude light-skinned people, of course, or white-passing people. Because generally, the paper bag test is lighter than brown-skinned people, like people like Rihanna, Nicki Minaj. When not tanned, you're going to pass the paper bag test. Myself, Cardi B. Well, Cardi B is light skinned, but she's barely light skinned, so, you know. But yeah, like a lot of brown skinned people and light skinned people, I don't think we're excluded. But the point is, what I wanted to say was, specifically, I feel like when it comes to the Black community, I feel like light skinned people are tools. Light skinned people are used, okay? Light skinned people are tools, and light skinned people are used the most. I honestly think, even more than brown skinned people. Brown skinned people are not really used to the same extent, because you have to understand, dark skinned Black people have used light skinned Black people to modify their own characteristics, physical characteristics for that matter. They've used light skinned Black people, especially white passing light skinned Black people, for pretty much any opportunity that they could ever get their hands on. They use white passing light skinned people. So, they tend to use light skinned people as a tool, but it's not really meant to benefit light skinned Black people. Dark skinned people do not benefit light skinned Black people ever. Light skinned Black people are made to serve the Black race, basically, and to serve dark skinned Black people for anything that they actually need. And the reason that is because dark skinned Black people have this entitlement to the race, basically. And this is not to say they all do, no. But I'm saying many do have an entitlement where they think that they are the standard to the race. They are the race. Everybody else has to prove themselves. Everyone else isn't really truly a part of it, and they have to make up for it. And that's why light-skinned black people are supposed to basically serve and basically, they're supposed to basically serve the greater good for dark-skinned black people, because light-skinned black people are supposedly benefited. Like when we believe in colorism, and I don't. But when people do believe in colorism, they believe that light-skinned black people are privileged. So if light-skinned black people are privileged, why would they need to be benefited by the black community, by the black race? They shouldn't be. They should be disadvantaged because they're already privileged. You see how this ideology literally hurts light-skinned black people, And it's not just that. It's also, like I said, like with in the other video I made specifically, it's made to undermine light-skinned black people. Any success a light-skinned black person has, it's because of colorism. Anything to do with any beauty, all light-skinned black people, some people basically act like all light-skinned black people are ugly and unattractive, and the only reason anyone says they're attractive is because they have light skin. Like, that's how they act. It's like they claim that colorism benefits light-skinned people, but they really mean to clandestinely make colorism benefit dark-skinned black people even more than it already has. Anyway, continue.
Again, look at the article, and I want to point out certain things within the article. One of them is the language. It's very evasive. It sounds like they just don't have any proof. The test was allegedly used. It is rumored. The test was believed. Part of oral history. These are very vague terms. So it's almost like you can't prove what you're saying, but you just need it to be true. And my only problem with that is whether or not it really occurred is one issue. It did occur a really long time ago, so I don't know why people try to bring it up today as if, people are doing this today. It occurred a really long time ago if it did happen, but there's really no proof. And people don't even know the numbers, like how many people were doing this. Was it a lot of people? Or did like 3 or 4 people do this and the news just spread like wildfire? I feel like that's something that people have to look at, because I just think that basically all light-skinned Black American people are being looked at as the villain, the colorist minority.
To me, the brown paper bag test or whatever, as it was a long time ago, one, I just kind of feel like it obviously didn't hurt anyone, because no white person was using a brown paper bag test. They don't give a fuck whether you're lighter than a paper bag, darker than the paper bag, the color of the paper bag, or have no fucking color whatsoever in any regard, if that was ever possible. Okay, if you were a whole new color, you were green, blue, whatever color, they wouldn't give a fuck, because what they cared about was if you had African lineage. That's what mattered. It didn't matter if you had a skin condition, if you were light, if you were dark. It didn't matter. So they weren't doing any paper bag tests. And the people in power back in the day that segregated black people were white people. Like, light-skinned people did not segregate dark-skinned black people. They were segregated with dark-skinned black people just the same. Besides white passing light-skinned black people, of course, many of them passed. But if white people knew, then they didn't pass, because they would just put them in the segregated colored section. So That's what I mean with these kind of things. It's kind of, to me, silly when people talk about oppression with it. People saying the paper bag test in itself, to me, isn't wrong, because the paper bag test is just a fact, right? Whether you're lighter than it, whether you're darker than it, whether you're the color of it. I don't understand what's so hurtful about being darker if you're just darker. It's like me saying, like I've always said this as an example, with a banana. I know I'm darker than the outside of a banana, the inside of a banana, all parts of a banana, besides, well, when a banana turns brown. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a ripe banana. I am darker than all parts of bananas, okay? I'm not going to cry over the fact that I'm darker than a banana. You get what I'm saying? This is the same thing that dark-skinned people do, act like it's so hurtful to talk about the brown paper bag test just because they're factually darker than the paper bag. It's nothing wrong with being darker than a specific object. You just are darker than it, or you are lighter than it. You know, it is what it is. You know, there are black cars out there that dark-skinned black people are lighter than. Okay, so do you think that that means that they are specifically what? Supposed to be happy about that or unhappy or what? Like, it's just a color. You're not supposed to be really angry at being darker or lighter than different colors. These things did not disenfranchise dark-skinned black people any more than it disenfranchised light-skinned people for being lighter than the paper bag. You know, because at the end of the day, white people didn't give a fuck. So, to me, it's just annoying when people talk about this and say, like, oh, in the old days, black people were discriminated on that grounds. It's not true because white people didn't give a fuck which color you were. Anyway.
Within the black community. And in reality, a lot of the time, light-skinned African American people are actually mixed race people. So you're talking about a different race of people within another community, and you're trying to hold the standard to them where somehow they have to have some type of allegiance to the darker skinned majority, when that really just isn't fair to them.
Not all lighter skinned black people are mixed. In the sense that you're talking, I think. The problem with saying mixed is this. Black Americans are mixed people, so we make all these silly designations. Like, some people will try and make a designation that, 75% is the cutoff. So anyone more than 75% black is not mixed, and everyone who is under 75% is mixed. Or some people, like you on your channel, I know you don't do that. You do more the 50-60% range, you know, and like, yeah, there are a lot of light-skinned people that are over 60% black who aren't mixed. You know, and there are plenty of dark-skinned people who are 60% or between the 50-60% range and are, I guess, in your idea of mixed. Mixture, biracial, things of that nature. The definition of biracial is having two races in your bloodline, basically. Basically, most black Americans are mixed. Added to the fact that, like, when we do the DNA tests, we get different percentages depending on the chromosome, which means that different parts of your genes are affected by different parts of your ethnicity. So if you have, like, your white ancestry makes you 55% white and 44 or 45% black ancestry on your 16th chromosome, right? Does that make you mixed on that chromosome while you have on your 9th chromosome 100% black? You know what I mean? You're not going to be, obviously, you're not specifically just one percentage in itself. depending on the chromosome. And some people would think that, oh, that means that you're going to end up with a lower percentage. No. You could end up with 90%. You can end up with 80%. You can end up with 65% black. It just depends in that range, you know? So to me, it's just like, in my opinion, I don't really think that we can really make a distinction there. Because, I mean, like, they're dark-skinned black people who have the same percentages as light-skinned black people. And then also, when we're talking about non-mixed people, like pure African people can be light-skinned. And I'm saying sub-Saharan African people. You know this, but I have to address that on the Cleopatra video. I'm getting to that. But sub-Saharan African people, like Igbo Africans and Central Africans, can be very light-skinned, you know, and they are black. So, I mean, most black Americans descend from the Igbo people in itself. They descend from Nigerian people and Central African people more than they do West African people, many of the time. And you will find this many of the time with lighter-skinned black people. It's even on a larger effect that Central Africans like Cameroonians and Congolese, and as well as Igbo people from Nigeria, have a big contribution to lighter-skinned black people. So it's not specifically mixing all the time that makes lighter-skinned black people have more, you know, light skin. Honestly, it could also have to do with different tribal connections. So continue.
I mean, they're a different group, so they should be able to delineate. And I feel like people delineate us anyway, kind of like a reverse mental paper bag, right? They look at us and say, oh, this person's a light-skinned person. You know, this is probably how they're thinking. They're colorists. But that's not fair to us, you know. We shouldn't be held to certain standards just because darker skinned people have had certain issues throughout history. And I also feel like a lot of people spend their time looking outward at what other people are doing, and they don't put themselves to good use and become productive members of society, or, you know, look at opportunities and try to work within the framework of what they can do. They spend a lot of time focusing on like light-skinned women or light-skinned men. And they're just not doing anything to, you know, elevate themselves. And then you have other people coming in.
Yeah, the reason they do that is because they're focused on what they're focused on what they don't have. You know, and they know they can't change it, so they find other ways to supplement their insecurity, basically. But they don't want to work on that insecurity. So they constantly have this battle within them, you know, and that's why they basically try to distract from it.
They're basically saying, oh, okay, you guys are, you know, not watching the bag. I'll take it, you know. So I feel like this has to stop. You know, this is a different race of people altogether. So the paper bag, it would have just been a way to delineate. But it is used in a way to make people feel guilty. It's a way to kind of oppress light-skinned people. Them wanting to be around people like themselves is considered a problem. You know, they're trying to discriminate by keeping us out. But it's not discrimination. I mean, you know, not wanting to give somebody sexual access to you, not wanting to be in physical proximity to somebody, that is not a form of oppression, okay? There's a lot of people that aren't going to give you that type of access and don't want you in their area. So it's not...
To me, I feel like, especially the sexual access part, there's two aspects to this, honestly. Like, one part is technically, well, I'll leave that out, actually. Because we're just talking about skin tone. We're not really talking about race here. At least the paper bag is not. But sexual access is annoying, but it's understood. The reason why they have an issue with lighter skinned people not preferring them sexually and do not want to be with them, because that is their ticket in their mind to change their phenotype, basically. They feel like they use lighter skinned black people to change their personal phenotype. And so that's why they have a fit when, if a lighter skinned black person doesn't want to be with them, they feel like that's a problem, because if everyone is like that, then how are they going to avoid passing down their darker phenotype to their children? I think that's why they like to have access to lighter skinned people to supposedly, and like how Hispanics say, to better the race. That's basically what dark skinned people do with light skinned people. Now, I don't believe it's bettering the race at all. I'm just saying it seems like that's their mode of transport, and that's why they feel like they're entitled to lighter skinned black people and have a bigger fit than like other races rejecting them.
Something personal. It's just in the case of when someone is lighter, oh, we can use that, okay? But that is not how it is. And I notice that people try to broadly use these terms and apply them to all people who are light-skinned Black Americans when that needn't be the case. And of course, we know that America has a big influence on the global community. This is something that's posted on Wikipedia, so you could imagine people in other countries reading this are thinking, oh, those light-skinned Black Americans must be terrible. They're discriminating and having paper bags hanging everywhere, keeping dark-skinned people out. But it's like, it's just not even how it is.
I just am like, where and how do light-skinned black people have the power to do such a thing? Our society is majority white. We're not in Dominican Republic, we're not in Jamaica, we're not in Bahamas. We do not have a majority black people or majority of Afro descendant people. So, how would light-skinned black people have the power to do this? I think more so, the thing is, when you really think about it, I think it's more so situation of how dark-skinned black people, they have this problem where they don't like their own skin tone sometimes. Now, not all of them, but the ones that have this issue have an issue with dark skin. The problem is that if you don't like dark skin, you need others to like it, because you want someone else to convince you that it's good and it's a good thing, right? Well, if light-skinned black people can't convince them of that and they can't validate them, then of course that's a big problem, because now the ones who aren't dark-skinned don't value it and you don't value it. Now you have a big problem on your hands. But the problem is that dark-skinned black people need to love their natural skin tone as it is, and not try to search for validation from others. Basically, when they search for validation from others, it's basically implying that their opinion of themselves is not good enough. And their opinion should be the most important, and that should be put on the highest pedestal over anyone else, in my opinion.
And you're talking about people, again, who are different. They have a different culture. They're a different ethnicity. And they want to be around people like themselves. So I think the common trope that somehow this is a form of discrimination, it should end. And we should look at it as a way that people try to delineate races in the past. But thank you for watching my video.
I don't think that light-skinned black people should be designated a different race than dark-skinned people. I don't. I think it honestly isn't really biologically sound in any regard. The light-skinned black people of Africa or the dark-skinned black people of Africa, for that matter. To me, they're all the same race, just different colors. Race was never really defined on color, but more craniological structure. So for, black people who are light-skinned, who are 100% African, were the same as the black people who are 100% black, sub-Saharan African, while being specifically dark skin. It's the same thing with black Americans, whether you want to call them mixed or not. The populations are light and dark, and the light and dark people are specifically pretty much within the same percentage. So you can't really say that dark skinned people aren't mixed, but light skinned black people are, when they come from the same families and they both have a lineage, a biracial lineage of black and white. So that's my opinion on that. But overall, I think it all comes down to the self-esteem of some dark-skinned people who do not feel good enough. But, I don't think all dark-skinned black people are like that. I think a lot of dark-skinned black people are happy with what they have. But then there's some that aren't, and they're just really loud about it. And I feel like, we need to work on those that don't feel happy about it and teach them how to handle it rather than to cope with it or to try and distract from it. Actually face it head on. So that's all I have to say in this video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, comment down below, and have a great day. Bye.